Thank you for tuning in to the World Builder's Anvil, Season 2, Episode 18. Let's make magic together. Less magic rules, more magic.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. You just have to complete statements, don't you?
I thought you'd like that.
Well, yeah. No, welcome back. Shocked as always. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
Feeling pretty good this morning. I am Michael Miller. I feel like it's been a while, Jeff.
It has been for us. Our show has been going on pretty well. I don't know how much disruption. There's been some illness issues in my family, so not COVID related, but not good nevertheless.
Jeff's been traveling. I have had some medical issues in my household as well, and also not COVID, just dental. Mm-hmm. So we have had, and my bathroom disruption. I had the floor in my bathroom redone yesterday. Jeff and I were scheduled to record like 2 or 3 episodes yesterday, and then I was like, oh wait, I've got workmen coming in, and they're going to be running saws all day. So
I feel tricked. I think Michael was just trying to trick me to get show notes done ahead of time because I spent the time actually making show notes for a while.
Oh no, it wasn't. But now that you've told me that, I'm absolutely going to use that trick in the future. Jeff, we're going to record 4 episodes next week. I need you to write up some show notes. Either way, welcome to the show, everybody. We're talking about
I've
magic.
missed you, even though it seems like you just heard from us last week and are probably sick of me at least.
Oh, well, I miss you too, Jeff.
Not you.
Oh, not me. You were talking to the audience.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
I take it back.
Yeah, I don't like you either. Yes, so we are here to bring magic. Yes.
You like that move?
Go. That was a good move, and if people could hear it, they would be amazed.
That's
at some point we're going to switch, and we'll have like a video. But I think Michael will need an actual office before we get.
That's the move that Silent Bob does when he says to Jason in Chasing Amy, "Didn't you know? I always wanted to be a dancer. You didn't know that?" And he goes like this. That move he took from Showgirls. Because she does it, and it's like, how does that prove in any way that you are a dancer? Because it's a hand motion. And when he met, what's her name? Elizabeth something, the chick from that movie. They laughed about it because she saw in his movie that she was making fun of her movie.
In real life.
And she thought it was hilarious because she thought it was stupid when she did it in her movie.
But they got to make the joke in their movie about what she was
exactly.
Yeah.
So
go watch. Say it's still better than Saved by the Bell.
Go watch Showgirls and then Chasing Amy, and then you'll know the joke that I'm making visually here in this auditory.
At some time when Michael gets an office, we will start releasing these in video, but it's unfair in its current circumstance to say, okay, the video's also open.
I wouldn't mind. I'm okay if I can just do something with a backdrop if you want.
Well, I don't care about. Oh, that's true. You could ramp like a little thing just behind you, so it would block off the giant rocket launcher you have parked in the back. Just remember to edit that out so no one knows.
Yeah, I'll cut that out.
All right. So here, let's talk about magic. We talked about it a little bit in our technology episode, which Michael and I both forget because it was so long ago. But we were talking about you could use magic as tech. And the idea there is you would kind of create the layers of which people have to learn things. So it would be like their version of the magical version of what would replace the Stone Age, what makes it the Stone Age, what makes it the, instead of the Bronze Age, what's the change that is needed developmentally, magically to progress. So there's like essentially gates. Think about like playing a civilization game. You're just like, I need this prerequisite so I could then move up to the next level. So if you've ever done an RPG progression in most modern RPG games, you've kind of run into this where it's like, I want this one thing, it's really cool, but I can't get that until I get 14 of this and 4 of that. You can build out a tree like that ultimately. But remember, at the point we're at, we are creating framework. We're actually not even developing systems. So what must have been, I don't know, maybe years ago at this point, we've been doing this for a while, the 7 rules of magic systems. That's something I would probably still go through if I was creating a magic system. Right now, we're not creating a system. We're creating a framework for it. We're trying to just lattice in what the things are that we are going to use. What is the point of all of this essentially? So, what will we use to make a system? And now some systems, if it's very agile, you might not need anything more than a framework, but other systems, hard systems, they like to call them, or, even more D&D like magic systems that a lot of worlds have, you need to have them a little bit more thought out. And I always wondered that, it's like in D&D, it's like you had to rest to get back spells. So it's like, and if you ever played like the old gold box D&D games, you saw the flaw in the system. I would go into a dungeon, I would fight really, really hard in a room, and then, the fight's over. Okay, everyone rest for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. Everyone rest for 8 hours so I could repower up. But the thing is, it's still a cost, so, I always like to think about it as in a cost. So now let's talk about
is this when you were running or when you were playing?
That was actually when I was playing, but that was more like the gold box D&D video games, not not actually a D&D camp, not a tabletop game. Okay. It would make a really boring tabletop campaign if you. But in theory,
I was going to say, if you were doing that playing tabletop, you could just be like, okay, while you were sleeping,
and all the fighters are like, "Oh, come on, we're going to keep going." See, tabletop is the opposite because you have everyone else who's like, "No, let's not rest quiet. Let's go a little further." You're like, "I'm out of sleep spells, guys. We don't want to go any further because you guys suck at fighting." And then the party wipes, and it's the fighter's fault. If you're the mage, obviously. If you're the fighter, it's the mage's fault. But yes. So
blame the other guy.
The goal of developing a framework will give you an idea of what your system's going to look like, but it's not going to tell you where it is. So we're going to create a system. And should I tease? I don't know if I should tease. Should I tease something? Let's tease something. I've been talking to some of the people who we've had on before, some of the game people. And so we might have a special season dedicated towards gaming, like actual games, like playing through some of the supplements people have made or some of the RPG things people have made with the creator. Help me.
Well, I like this idea. I didn't know you were doing this.
Yes, so it's something I was thinking of, but we haven't really had a lot of time this year. So, but I've talked to a few of the people already, and hopefully I can bring on some more people and people can see a bit of what people are doing out there from the eyes of the creator, and then do little fun short games, like maybe 1 or 2 session kind of games or whatever to go on, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I just think that will be fun. And this season's drawing to an end. I only have through episode 21 planned for this season. However,
no. Let's not skate over that. My plan was to have 20 episodes, and I had to talk you into 20 from like 17 originally. Right. Yeah. And now he's throwing this wrench in my works to perfectly end at 20, and we're going to have 21.
And that's not true, though, because remember, the whole point is to be iterating your world. So as you go forward, you're going to create more needs sometimes, because maybe it's like you've decided to tell another story, or as you've developed backgrounds and stuff like that, there's more stuff you need to know. And so when we have to go back and build something where we'll start the framework, which will end up being episode 1, even though it could happen technically during episode 5 or season 5. So it could be like a season 1 episode during season 5 to make it more confusing. But ultimately, it'll be easier because people will know if you're talking about framework, you're talking about season 1. If you're talking about creating stuff about character, or I'm sorry, season 2. If something about characters could be season 3. Because that's what we're going to go into next to appease Michael, since I'm going over 20 and he loves characters. And it really doesn't matter where you go. It matters on how you get there. And so we'll go into people more deeply in season 3 to get some details. But more about that later. Because we're talking about magic. Can't you tell? Okay. But so back to, we're not creating a system. So the thing is, when you walk away from here, you might be able to visualize the system, and that might be enough for you to go ahead and tell stories in, especially if you're writing. But that's not the intention. The intention is to come up with the framework, the idea, the inspiration, and you might need to flesh it out more, and you might not need to flesh it out more. But the goal isn't to have it. And I would still, even if I thought I had a system, I would go back to the 7 Rules of Magic episodes. I think there were 2 or 3 of them, I forget, and I think there were 2, and go through and make sure you have all of the bases covered, so you have a complete system. Like essentially, it's really the limitations that make magic. So keep that in mind. But now, and this system we're going to talk about, I'm trying to think of I want to create a spirit-based magic system in Dungeons and Dragons. Because if I start running games here, it's probably going to be 5th edition just because of its popularity. Plus, if you use D&D Beyond, you can kind of create cool characters and integrate them with Roll20 pretty easily. So it'll probably go that way if I run any more games through here, just for simplicity's sake. But then we have a visual record of what's going on too, to some degree. Even though most of my game mastering is mind's eye, not miniature based. But so when we're talking about this, I've already predetermined. I know that this is going to be what Michael and I like to call a spirit-based system of magic. And for all those of you who are nerds in the back scenes, I also want you to know that this is a voodoo-based system. Even though to work in D&D, the only way I can figure out how to get it to work in D&D will probably be to make it a spell system. It's just one where it will take materials that you can't get rid of, and time, and shortcuts cost you risks and stuff like that. So, and I played D&D 2nd edition, so there'll probably be too many tables. So, yes, because tables make it all work. Now, Michael remembers. Now,
the only thing that I don't like about when it comes to like doing a good tabletop game, and this is a broad sweeping statement for whether it's cyberpunk or D&D or
for
whatever.
Any system is what you're saying.
For any system, my big thing is the system should not be in the way of the storytelling. So if I find I don't mind pulling out a book while we're in the middle of a situation to try to appropriately resolve a situation if somebody's trying to skirt a rule or figure something out, if it serves the story. But if I find that I'm doing that a lot, or if I find I'm taking brief breaks to do a lot of math all the time, I'll start, using all that stuff as suggestion instead of law, because it shouldn't interrupt the flow of a story. I have too much commitment to the story, and I know we've mentioned it before, and Jeff is the GM that probably him and one other GM I've worked with know enough that I don't try to make things advantageous to my character out of selfishness. If I'm doing it to serve the story. I will more often than not, I'm willing to make things harder for my character to serve the story, especially if I find it more interesting. So
and where you've developed as a player too, you work really hard to stay in character and stuff like that. If a character acts selfishly, it would be because the character, that would be what they would do as well. So, but my point is, like, you don't often see in games.
And my point is, I just don't want to see the tables or the rules slow down the progression of story. And I've seen it grind to a halt. I've seen D&D games where we came into a fight that should have been a standard encounter, and watched that one combat sequence last 2 hours, when in real time it lasted in game time, it occurred in,
seconds,
5 minutes, if that. But
Yeah,
in real time,
and
it took us more than 2 hours. Yeah. And I get it. You've got 4 or 5 players. Everyone's got special moves and special things they want to try or do. So it's going to play out that way, but it shouldn't play out that way because you're constantly looking up rules.
Yes. That should not further slow it down. Sometimes the system itself just can't be as fast as the reality. But and that's usually the case for combat. So, but yes. So now we're going to get in here, but we're going to go on with the basis 1. I already kind of have an idea of where I'm going with this system. And it needs to be loose and abstract for me because I like to reuse things, right? Especially when I'm doing frameworks, I like to reuse things. So, for me, a spirit-based system, people think of, the good example on earth that most people know about, at least in the West, is like voodoo, where you have like a shaman who does things. But essentially most tribal societies have this thing where they interact with local spirits or maybe even the gods through a similar way, but it's very, very ritualistic. It's very time consuming. But once the ball's rolling, it's you can't use a detect magic spell and know what's going on, because for me it flows through the spirits happening. The spirits are the thing. A detect spirit spell could know there's a spirit there, but a detect magic spell wouldn't know that the spirit's cursing you. So and a remove curse spell is designed to remove a spell curse. You would have to be able to exercise the spirit to remove the curse if that happened this way. So it kind of, you have to think about one, how does it collide with other magic if there is any? And for me, I don't want to overprescribe and say what is used to bribe the local spirits, because the spirits here are different than the spirits in a desert area, which are different than the spirits in a mountain area. So, your spirits are going to have different wants, needs, desires. And you could also argue that the cultures around those spirits have been influenced by those spirits. They help make up the environment where the cultures are from. So there's some connection between the local culture and the spirits. So you can kind of look at a local society and start to guess what the spirits are interested in. Not 100%, but that could get you going. So there, there's something of like understanding spirits themselves and being able to learn a spirit before you do something. Because let's say if I go do a love potion and I need a spirit to infuse into it or something, if I do that, then the bribe I give a spirit where I'm from could be different. So maybe I've figured out on my own what to do where I'm from. But if I go somewhere else and there's a different spirit that's being used, I could offend that spirit. Or I might be working with a much more powerful spirit who has their own needs, wants, and desires in this. And I'm not smart enough to know that. So there's some different dynamics than a classic spell system. But if you ever want to use it in 5th edition, you kind of need you need it to be like spells, because that's the mechanic of how magic is used. So unless I figure out something better without like too homebrewy. But so the thing is, I'm not worried about the system rules. I'm not worried about it, the details on it, but just the idea that when I'm going through the questions, it's about this system. I know it's going to be spirit based later on. And so right away I know is how is the magic performed? It is bribing spirits. And spirits is a loose term of anything that's just supernatural. So this is an example too, where I have those where, what, when, who, how, and why questions for everything I like to go through. In this scenario, I'm starting at the how, which I usually start with the where. But it doesn't matter where you start the questions. It doesn't even matter where you end in the questions. It matters ultimately that you go through them and just ask yourself, because the idea is, and really when you're creating this stuff, it's from a mind's eye, you're creating something. You really need to get it to a point where you can kind of visualize it without looking at it. So that's why a good game master is usually pretty familiar with the system that he's running, so he doesn't have to refer back all of the time.
And you'll get there. If you're not there yet, if you're still learning to be a GM, I know we sometimes have crossover listeners that listen to Seize the GM, which is a great show.
Great place to go. Yep.
So if you're learning to be a GM, it's perfectly fine to be looking at the books, but it really will help you speed the game along when you get to the point where you don't need to. Or you can just say, you know what? I'm just gonna gunsling right here. Yeah, exactly. And I'm just gonna wing it because I know what I want in this scenario, and I'm not gonna be hamstrung by the rules. And don't let your gamers be like, no, the book says XYZ. I do not appreciate game lawyers at the table.
Yeah, and I do believe there's a point to it, but there's an idea of house rules as well too. And sometimes if you haven't thought about it ahead of time, they get instantiated as you move forward. Just don't break your rules. Don't do it for a convenience of a scene. Do it for what works better for your game.
Yeah.
But now back to here let's go back to the questions. So where's the magic performed? And here I say anywhere, right? You can have, it's like you watch movies with seances and exorcisms.
So are we building through these questions?
Yeah, we are.
You want to build? Okay. I didn't know if we were just going through magic system questions or if you actually wanted to build this.
Remember, we're just trying to come up with a framework. We're trying not to systematize it, even though it's very tough for me not to do that.
Okay.
I want to go there because it's interesting. I have an idea of what I want to do here anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the question is, where is the magic performed? And I say technically anywhere.
I'm cool with this.
Because think about it, like, seances and all this stuff, these all fall into spirit magic, right? The thing is, there have to be places of power. There's always places of power. So places of power help, and if you're trying to do something really big, like you want to, get Zeus to do your bidding, you better go to some place to give you as much advantage as you possibly can. Because, a deity level spirit is going to be really kind of hard to control. And that's probably one that you'd pay for in the long run anyway.
Well, yeah, especially if it was manipulative.
But sometimes, it could be a place of power. Like I'm going to ancestor spirit. So maybe I'm going to where the shrine is for the ancestors. Think about sort of ancestor style of magic. You would typically go to the shrine to ask for the help of the ancestor, or maybe like your great grandfather was the king of the land, and you want to avenge what happened to your family when he was murdered by the current dynasty, hundreds of years ago. So you go back to the scene of the battle where he got stabbed in the back by them, and perform your thing there to get his help in what you're going to do going forward. So once again, because it's a spirit-based system, different spirits are going to have different rules. And so that I know that's something that'll have to be fleshed out, but where it comes to where is, we know it can be done anywhere. You could be in school and give an evil eye to your teacher if you want. But if you're at a place of power, it's a lot simpler to do that. So now, thinking on a basic way, what can magic do or not do? So not is usually easier for me. And I say it's not done by the user. That's the whole point of it being in this system that I'm working the framework from. It's there's no spell caster. It's someone who's using or interacting with spirits somehow. The spirits do all of the magic. There's some knowledges that make your job easier or more hard. Like maybe you need a certain number of ingredients mixed together to have the spirit infuse the love potion. But the spirit makes it the love potion. It's not, the ingredients are only part of the ritual as they're created and put into the thing that allow it to happen. So I'd say that one of the limitations is you can't ever like hip through a fireball at someone. You have to be prepared somehow. So the magic's not done by the users. I know that. what can or cannot do. Beyond that, I don't know how many limitations are. It can bring back life. If you have a spirit powerful enough to do that, you might not like the result.
Is it going to be like pet cemetery sort of limitation?
Not necessarily, right? It depends. If you have the right spirit, the right mood, and the right bribe, you could get exactly what you want. More than likely, you're going to get what you ask for. Because, I mean, the biggest thing to remember is the spirits have their own ego. The more powerful they are, the larger their ego is. And, really powerful spirits, especially like you start getting up, even before you get up to the God level spirits, probably think that, squishy mortal things are beneath them. The same way that the ancestor spirits are beneath them. So there's a hierarchy, which could vary area to area on what the hierarchy is. But there's a hierarchy. So we know there's a hierarchy of spirits, which can vary, and it doesn't matter what the hierarchy is.
Do you want to name some of these things just so that we have at least a
pet name
a little bit? Well, maybe write down a couple of things in the hierarchy, like say a ghost. So what used to be a quote unquote mortal being and now trapped on the planet side as a spirit. So a ghost. That would be like a low level.
But then you have it's locally bound.
A locally bound, of course. We're not talking about full world wanderer. Now, what about
I would say a soul too.
Would you say an elemental qualifies as a spirit being, or is that going to be a physical created like?
I think there's a level of entity called nature spirits. We'll call them nature spirits.
Okay.
Nature spirits are essentially, it's like if you get to certain folklore, it'd be like the spirit of our river.
Would that spirit
of
be
the forest?
Would that spirit be corporeal or simply visual?
It could potentially take corporeal form if it's powerful enough, or it depends. Like a dryad or a nymph would be a nature spirit. If you're up in the frozen north, maybe you have a frozen swirly kind of spirit. Sort of like, when it hits you, you freeze very quickly or something might be the outcome. So elemental spirits could form up there. So it would depend on where you are. They might not be everywhere. They might not always have an elemental form, but they have some corporeal capacity, we'll say. And they're over what I would call ghost and souls. So ghosts are something in this plane that's very, very localized. Typically very weak, but they can be really powerful if you're on their spot because they are in their place of power. The weakness is they are in their place of power, so it can be used against them. Then you have souls, which would be someone who's gone beyond the grave, but most people couldn't get to these because you have to know how to contact beyond the grave, or do like a fable style thing and go, you know what, I'm going to go in the underworld to talk to Uncle Bob. So those are your two choices. My suggestion would be find someone who knows how to call long distance.
Right.
But if you can't do that, you have to go to the underworld.
Do we I think that's going to be a nice build episode right there. We do a fable episode about how to travel to the underworld, and we create all the necessary things to go through to get there.
You're going to like one of the episodes we're going to do. We're going to finally come up with a story outline for why we're building this world. Like an actual story outline, not just the sort of kind of thing that we kind of know that's happening. So ghosts, soul, nature spirits, I would say you have wandering spirits, right? Because so far things we're talking about are all bound to a place. They're bound to like a house they were murdered in, or a room. They're bound to the underworld. They're bound to a place in the physical world. And the power is rising up and getting more powerful as we're going. So beyond nature
Wandering
spirits.
wandering spirits, I say, come in two flavors. They just come in. They're powerful enough that they may wander, and they can choose to wander. Subsequently, they have a strong free will. Like they're not bound particularly to, like, say, a particular deity or a purpose.
Or they could be, but
Or they could be. But my point is that they have a lot of free roaming ability and free will of their own. And the second class would be cursed, in which case probably malevolent, but not necessarily.
I keep saying spirits here. These are not necessarily good nor bad. And so for all of these, there, as in a variety of humans, there's a variety of alignments, one alignment per, So, it's like you could have a good ghost or an evil ghost. You have Casper.
Well, what I'm saying
or
is
Slimer.
That first category I'm saying could be anything as far as alignment goes, but so can the second. But my distinction on the second, that they're cursed, that they are wandering because they are cursed, and subsequently,
I see what you're saying.
It's a punishment. It's a punishment that they've received.
Gotcha. Or cursed.
So
I'm gonna put the cursed first. Actually,
so regardless if they are cursed, regardless if they were mortal or even a powerful, supernatural, existent creature, thing, whatever. If they're cursed, then they are beholden to an activity or an obligation.
So I'm going to say, under hierarchy, I'm going to add type. And so far we have cursed or naturally occurring, or GMO-free, we'll call it GMO-free.
GMO-free.
So you have your naturally occurring spirits, and some of those could be, so at any of these levels, like someone might be a ghost because they were cursed, but their will isn't strong enough to wander. So they're trapped in the house and they're super malevolent. But that's like your classic haunted house movie ghost. But a wandering spirit who is cursed was cursed to do it, but his will was strong enough he could break free of where he was. And to me, I see stuff in here like reverence. Like they might be attached to a physical thing too. But there's a supernatural level to them. However, if you can break the body, you can at least temporarily stop them. But spirits are never trapped by death because they are spirits. They are not of this world, but you can definitely banish them from this world by killing their bodies. So you have wandering spirits, which I have ranked higher than nature spirits. And then I'm going to say guardians. And once again, this could be good or bad. And this is going to enter a new type of spirit. This is going to become ether planar. So you get to a certain realm, and they're not necessarily they are not of this world. They are neither natural or cursed. They could be good or evil, but they are something essentially from another plane of existence, or you say they're from heaven or they're from hell. You're not exactly sure where they're from. They're just not from here. And guardians, to be active here enough for you to notice them, have to be more powerful. Some of them might be worshipped as gods, but not necessarily. But like, it could be a lesser god in a pantheon, or like an angel thing. If you go to like monotheism, like, well, angels are much more powerful than humans, but they're not in the scope of our one God. So they're not as powerful as gods, but they are still very powerful. And then above that, we'll do gods with a lowercase g. And essentially that is your that's your Zeus, that's your Thorax, god of revenge, all of the normal ones you think about. They are all part of this area. So once again, these are things you might not want to interact with. Like, say, if you're a local like hedge wizard somewhere, you're you're like a local wisdom. If you read Wheel of Time, the herbalist kind of witch, the friendly witch. You probably don't want to interact with spirits of this magnitude or of guardians, really, because they're exceptionally powerful, and the price will either be so high, even if they're a good thing. It's like, why would this insect ask me a question? It'd be like a mosquito landing on you saying, hey, could you help me suck someone else's blood? And you're going to squash the mosquito probably. So in this interaction, when you get to guardians and especially gods, you are the mosquito landing on their arm to ask or potentially demand of them something to be done. So you have to keep that in mind. And then we're going to say, right now I'm going to call them the older ones. So they're the ones from, before the current reign, and they're probably something scary. So, it's the Titans, it's something that scares the gods. Cthulhu would be an older one.
That's what I was going to say, like Cthulhu. But see, Cthulhu, and I'll admit that I don't know a great deal about Cthulhu, but is Cthulhu a thoughtful being? Does Cthulhu
maybe not in the way you understand?
Well, fine, but my point is, like, does he think? Does he have plans? Does he have intentions? Or is Cthulhu just a thing that is incredibly powerful and just kind of like a phalanx demon? Mm-hmm. It just has like instincts.
For me, if it's an older one, you are dealing with something that has instincts. If it seems like a phalanx demon where you don't understand it, it's your limited intelligence. So like when I've used in my games, stolen from my friend Dave Hawken, are streeters. And that was very much this idea where they would probably be wandering spirits, maybe guardians at the most, but they served the street, and the street was essentially a force of malevolent evil, that would infest dogs. And so these things might not appear, they might appear to be a force of nature that is just like a giant super hurricane destroying things in its path, and you might not realize its intention, and it might not have one in like its own intelligence sense, but there's something driving it. There's some control. The likelihood you can control something at this level is below zero, probably. Maybe modified up to, if you get a natural 25 times in a row, maybe you have a shot. These are things that, they're nightmares for gods. I mean, let's just put it that way, right? And it might just be, they might not necessarily even be evil, but like, you probably don't understand what their intentions really are when they get this powerful. Because you are no longer even a mosquito on someone's arm. You are a speck of dust in an atom, So, but they exist, and if you critically fail, who knows what you bring forth sometimes, right? Probably not quite that easy, but hey, obviously if it was that easy to release them upon the world, the whole world would be dead. So, but there we are. But I like those because I like the Cthulhus. I like that kind of thing. I mean, and I think of Titans this way, right? Like Zeus, and then we're afraid of the Titans. And Zeus is an all-powerful god. So what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, a Titan held the world up. Now, when can magic be performed? Anytime. You can start the magic, but it takes time. Now, the cheats being, you can store it up. You can have batteries. So you can create talismans. You can create amulets. You can create bombs. You can create things. So if you need it more quickly, you can access the power, but you have to take the time to make them. If you don't have them made, then you can't use them later on. Maybe there's a shelf life on them. Maybe there's not. That will depend on items. And so it's almost like the spell portion, we're taking magic items and spells and squashing them together to make potions or to make healing bombs or a burning liquid that you spit into someone's face and light them on fire. But those have to be made ahead of time. So we're going to say anytime, but it can be stored. And we'll say spirits work better at different times. So if you're trying to get a moon,
can you store it in yourself?
Yes, it's called possession.
No, but let's say you're working on a spell and you're using yourself as a vessel to hold that. So I say that it's
that would technically be possession.
Okay.
That would be the rule, right? And so you probably wouldn't want to do it to yourself, but now the trick might be I'm going to store it in the ink that I put on my skin. So now the tattoo becomes magic. It's technically not inside of you, but the ink is. So it's stored in the ink, but it prevents the spirit from taking over you. So it creates an intermediate to protect you. So that's where like you get like a lot of tribalism with tattoos and stuff like that, or jewelry on a person. But ink is more permanent. So, or scarring, could be done as well too, where you're making the skin too rough so the spirit can't get in to the rest of you. So it's kind of possessing you, but not really.
Do you believe you would like to see like Wardic magic in that regards? Like, could a person tattoo themselves with Wardic runes, thus preventing, because you're still talking about magic at that point. But if they're not the source of it, you're still talking about spirit being involved. So you're creating like I'm going to tattoo across my arm. No evil spirits can touch me or whatever, and then it still needs a spirit power source.
Oh, yes.
So
there would have to be a spirit infused into that. And now one that goes away, what the spirit could infuse it, but then it would go away over time. If you want it permanently, you'd have to infuse a spirit into it, which would mean there'd probably be a higher cost, obviously. And then the problem being, if it's another interaction versus another spirit, is that other spirit more powerful than the one in your arm?
Can the beings in our new world destroy spirits? Our spirits like energy in that they don't get destroyed, they just change.
They change their shape and placement. Yeah.
Okay. So even a small spirit, like let's say, some magical being who's some or not magical being, but a person who manipulates a lot of magic, runs into a spirit that is not happy with him, but is much less powerful than the resources he has available to him, and he uses his spirit influence magic to combat that smaller, lesser spirit. He cannot destroy it.
No, it's like energy. You can reshape it and maybe make it kinetic or not kinetic. You can do things with it, but you can't get rid of it. Matter is just a form of energy.
Trap it, banish it, turn it into something different.
Yeah, it's a supernatural energy to
change its mind. You wanted to kill me a moment ago. Now you don't want to do that anymore. Since I can't destroy you.
Oh, you're a ghost trapped in this house that's malevolent. I can't destroy you, but I can banish you
to another house.
I can release you to the other world. So you can move beyond. So I can release you from this world, allowing you to pass on, freeing that area of you, but I've not destroyed you.
So powerful. I'm going to see, do we want to use the word magic user just to keep things short? But we're
keep it short for now. Yeah.
Okay. So a magic user, they're aware of there being multiple levels of existence, multiple layers of existence. Maybe not all magic users, but maybe powerful ones be like, oh, look, I can totally push you into another dimension if I want to.
Well, it would depend on how well versed they are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They'd have to be really, really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Because most people are just going to be like, oh, well, there's this world and sometimes spirits hang out in it. We don't know what spirits do when they're not here.
Yes.
Maybe there is a spirit world. Obviously, lots of mythologies create the concept of a spirit world as well. So it's like, oh, we have this world and the spirit world, but there's only two. No. This guy over here tells me there's like an infinite number of them. And he's very knowledgeable. His name is Rick Sanchez. Do you not get that one?
No, I don't get that one.
You don't watch Rick and Morty yet?
No.
Oh, Jeff. Well, go watch your real world task this week is to go watch Rick and Morty. It's available on Hulu.
Okay, you can tell me whatever. Actually, I give myself one in here, but we'll see. Okay,
watch
let's try
Rick and Morty.
We have to wrap this one up. It's
do we? I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, no, we have to.
Fine. Okay. So, quickly go over the questions.
Okay, so well, we still have a couple more left. We have who can perform the magic, and technically anyone can. I can leave, things at the altar for my family. Someone who's attuned has a huge advantage. And there's different ways to be attuned. Like maybe you could be self-possessed to have spirits speak through you, maybe, or act through you. Maybe there are different ways people interact with spirits. All of those different ways are different ways people can control spirits.
I already see a story where we have a special character for some reason. Good and bad spirits, regardless, just seem to like this character.
And then we already know the last one, which is why is the form of magic used, and it is to protect yourself from the supernatural and aid yourself in the world. It's not a religion. Even though there's spirits, there might be religious elements in certain rituals, but it's not a religion. It's not like a cleric. It would technically be a magic user class, I guess, but there probably be a couple different kinds. But you're trying to protect yourself, and aid the world, and aid yourself in the world. That's really all you're trying to do. So, quick recap: when you're trying to create your framework for magic, you want to think of where is the magic performed, what can the magic not do or can do, when can the magic be performed, who can perform the magic, how is the magic performed, and why is the form of magic used. There's a purpose, and maybe it's just from tradition sometimes, but whatever it is you come up with, this will give you the foundation of things to keep in mind as you create a system behind there. So I hope you found this all very useful. Michael, can you give us a world building task for today?
World building task for today. If your world doesn't already contain a magic system, then start working on a magic system. Even if your world isn't going to have magic, you might define that you create something, or there's a number of technology heavy games that I've played where the technology seemed like magic, or very easily you can take that technology or that magic system and maybe pull things from it and just give it a technology reason for existing. So it's ironic how similar magic and technology systems exist. So work on a magic system. If you already have a magic system, it's nothing wrong with having two in the same world. Maybe consider modifying or creating a peoples that no one has discovered in your world yet, and they have their own system that interacts with the magic totally differently.
Yes, and now for the final thing is, and actually my words for that was create your words. Excuse me, create your words. So like your words of power, kind of reference to Army of Darkness there. And then for your real world task, relax to the movie Prestige. I hear it's supposed to be very, very good.
Have you never watched it?
I've never watched it.
It's really good.
I was thinking, I was going to have The Illusionist here because I know of that movie and I know it's really good. Then I came across this.
The Prestige is better. The Illusionist is good.
That's what I heard it was better in every way, pretty much.
Yeah, the Prestige is definitely
Illusionist
better.
was pretty good. So
and plus, I mean, look at the cast. In the Prestige, you've got Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, David Bowie, Michael Caine. It's a fantastic cast.
Bunch of has-beens. Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson actually is in there too.
Oh, so it's a good movie. All right, folks.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.